After the exam was over, the instructors arrived to rescue the cadets, bringing them all to safety. The chaotic events of the fourth day passed in a flash. The following day, they were finally able to close the sickening chapter of the finals. Although there was an unexpected butterfly sapling incident, the negotiation concluded that the 4 cadets who stopped it would share the points. Hajin checked his watch and saw there was still no contact from the chameleon troop. He wondered what had caused the captain to take an interest in him. Naeun approached Hajin and asked how it all ended. She mentioned that Kim Suho had said Hajin destroyed the butterfly's wings. Hajin shook his head, saying that was impossible with just a pistol. Then he asked her why she used a sword instead of a bow during the exam. She angrily replied, asking if he hadn't been the one to suggest it. Hajin clarified, saying there needs to be progress, and it's dangerous to use weapons she's less trained in. She told him not to worry about her. Hajin then asked how she felt using the sword. Naeun stayed silent, so Hajin asked if it was still scary for her. She denied it, claiming she wasn't afraid of anything. However, it was obvious when Naeun lied, one of those cringy behaviors he wrote about her. He reassured her, saying that she would become even better with practice. After all, she was born with a natural talent for swordsmanship. In the next scene, Yuyona was convinced that Hajin was interested in her. She asked Suho, since he was close to him, what he thought about it. Suho, confused, wondered if they were really that close. After thinking about it, he realized she wasn't entirely wrong. He then asked Yuyona if Hajin had been close to her from the beginning. She admitted that Hajin only approached her because he needed something. But his interest in Naeun seemed different. Naeun quickly denied everything. As they were talking, Hajin entered the cafeteria. Yuyona saw him, and they greeted each other briefly before Hajin left. Yuyona teased Naeun, saying that Hajin had glanced at her on his way out, making Naeun flustered. Later, Hajin returned to his dorm. Evangel, excited to see him, ran up to him and asked where he had been. He told her he went to get her some food. He also told her to call him uncle or Hajin instead of dad. Confused, Evangel asked why, and Hajin realized she needed some guidance. Evangel had hatched next to Rachel and had quickly grown attached to him. Suddenly, Hajin noticed that instructors were approaching. He asked Evangel to turn back into her seed form. Confused, she asked what he meant. He explained that she needed to change back into the small, round shape she had before. She complied and transformed back into a small seed, allowing him to keep her hidden in his dorm. Afterward, Evangel ate her food happily, saying she liked it. Hajin then remembered the sapling dust from the butterfly incident. Originally, this dust should have ended up in Suho's hands, but now that Hajin had it, he realized he needed to find a way to give it to him. Meanwhile, Rachel was deep in thought about the child she had seen in her dream. The warmth and vividness of the encounter left her wondering if it was the spirit of the tree or just a hallucination. Still, she had a strong feeling that they would meet again someday. In the next scene, Yuyona was waiting for someone. That person arrived, it was Hajin. Yuyona was surprised he hadn't rejected her offer. She mentioned that there was another person they were waiting for, but since that person would be late, she decided to take Hajin inside first. Yuyona commented on how well he had done in the exam. Hajin modestly replied that he had only earned 67 points. Yuyona, however, noted that he was starting to attract the attention of other guilds. Then Hajin saw something that shocked him: the building of Essence of the Straits. A few days earlier, Hajin had received a message about a guild tour. Each guild had announced a list of cadets chosen for the tour. The guild tour event was created so that cadets on holiday could observe heroes in action, learning from their missions. The guilds could select cadets based on their rankings, but each guild could only choose 3 cadets from the first and second years combined. Because of this, first-year cadets ranked below 300 were rarely chosen. Despite his good performance in the finals, Hajin knew that his overall ranking wasn't high enough to guarantee a spot. But to his surprise, he received a message. It was from Essence of the Straits. He had been chosen for the guild tour. In the next scene, Hajin and Yuyona entered the building. Hajin knew it was Yuyona who had put his name on the list. As the daughter of the guild leader, she would have the power to do that. The group in charge led them into the analysis room. The man in charge mentioned that he heard Hajin was #1 in theoretical studies, which was why he had brought him here first. This person was Park Sungo, Yuyona's right-hand man, responsible for overseeing the guild tour. In person, Park Sungo seemed kind and pleasant, far from the vicious villain who would one day betray Yuyona, as Hajin recalled from the novel. As they were talking, a woman approached and asked if Hajin was the cadet named Kim Hajin. She was the hero, Lee Jinha. With a mocking tone, she commented on how much the world had changed, allowing a cadet ranked 934 to participate in the guild tour at Essence of the Straits. Lee Jinha was a supporter of the current vice guild leader and opposed Yuyona, the rightful heir to the guild. However, Hajin knew that in the future, Lee Jinha would become one of Yu Yona's most loyal allies, eventually rising to the position of vice captain on her own merit. Park Sung-go defended Hajin, explaining that he was #1 in theoretical studies. Lee Jinha scoffed, saying that the theories taught to students weren't particularly important. She handed him a stack of papers, challenging him to solve the problems, and taunted that he probably wouldn't understand any of it. Hajin accepted the challenge calmly and asked for some blank papers to work on. As they left to greet the last person joining the tour, Hajin got to work on the problems. The questions were about variables that could arise during dungeon exploration, questions no typical cadet could answer. But Hajin had his observation and reading skills, which allowed him to copy the calculations that appeared before him. He was nearly finished when Lee Jinha suddenly snatched the paper from him, telling him to stop wasting time and give up. Hajin was frustrated, knowing that she would definitely ask him about the final part of the problem later. Afterward, Hajin headed down to the first floor. As he exited, he saw Naeun, who was shocked to see him. She immediately asked Yu Yona what Hajin was doing there. Hajin, meanwhile, wondered why Yu Yona hadn't mentioned Naeun's presence earlier. In Yu Jinhyuk's office, he sat alone, frustrated. After a month of digging, he had only managed to find a few pieces of paper. He was investigating Kim Hajin, trying to uncover the people he had been connected to, who his parents were, and how he became an orphan. No matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find much about Hajin. The difficulty of the task only piqued his interest further. Among the few details he had uncovered, the report mentioned the Gongho shelter massacre and a pregnant woman related to that incident. Meanwhile, Park Sung-go explained to the group that they would be performing an activation mission and needed to be on standby until they received orders. He asked Naeun why she had been late, to which she replied that she had to meet her grandfather. Park Sung-go asked if she was referring to the great hero, Chai Jukyul. Yu Yona told them to go ahead without her, saying she would catch up later. Once separated from the group, Yu Yona contacted her uncle, Yu Jinhyuk, and asked about the progress on her request. He admitted he hadn't started yet because he had been too busy. Frustrated, she questioned what he had been doing all this time. Yu Jinhyuk asked why she was so intent on finding out about Hajin's parents. Yu Yona speculated that Hajin might have memorized the list of wanted individuals for a reason and believed his parents might have been caught up in a tragedy. At the mention of a tragedy, Yu Jinhyuk's thoughts immediately turned to the Gongho shelter massacre. He avoided further talking, saying some visitors just came, and ended the call. A horrific event that took place 16 years ago when monsters overran the Gongho fortress area. In that incident, 86 civilians and 9 heroes were massacred. Yu Jinhyuk himself had been caught trying to investigate the incident over a decade ago, leading to his expulsion from the Yu family. Although the government and the Hero Association officially blamed the demonic humans for the massacre, Yu Jinhyuk knew the truth. The true perpetrators were powerful figures: Kim Seok-ho, the president of South Korea at the time, Chai Jukyul, the chairman of Daehoon, and Yu Jin-yong, Yu Yona's father. They had hired assassins to kill everyone in the shelter, and to them, it was merely a small, insignificant matter. Yu Jinhyuk now feared that Kim Hajin's parents might have been among the victims of that massacre and that Hajin could be plotting revenge. The thought terrified him. He knew that if he continued digging into this case and Chai Jukyul discovered his investigation, he could meet a terrifying death. Meanwhile, Park, Naeun, and Yu Yona were rushing towards the monster that had appeared, while Hajin struggled to keep up with them. Park asked why Hajin was lagging behind, and Naeun replied that he would catch up eventually. Then Park turned to Yu Yona and asked why she looked so upset, to which she didn't respond, still fuming about her uncle. They reached the area where a golem was attacking a group of children. Without hesitation, Yu Yona whipped her weapon around the golem's hand, restraining it momentarily. Park then hurled his spear at the golem. As Hajin finally arrived, he saw Naeun taking aim. Realizing that her arrows wouldn't be enough to stop the golem, she decided to use her sword, charging at the golem and aiming for its weak point. Just as she was about to strike, the golem noticed her intention and swung to punch her, causing her to fall hard to the ground. She was injured and could barely move. Sensing her vulnerability, the golem prepared another attack. Desperate, Hajin shouted for Naeun to dodge, but before he could process what was happening, Naeun was already in his arms. Ether had reacted instinctively, pulling her to his arms to help her. Hajin, trying to hide this awkward situation, scolded Naeun for freezing in such a critical moment and advised her to fight with a long sword, using her gift more effectively. Annoyed, she told him to mind his own business and not to interfere again. The reason Naeun had to become a swordswoman was due to her immense mana capacity, far beyond that of a typical hero. Her gift, Mana C, gave her mana reserves even greater than Kim Suho's. After they took care of the remaining golems, a rescue team arrived. Hajin noticed someone watching from a distance. He recognized her immediately, but said nothing. As Naeun called for him to head back, the mysterious person continued to watch him from the shadows. Meanwhile, back at the guild building, Lee Jinha was exhausted from work. A girl approached her, asking if she was still doing calculations. The girl suggested getting help from the office, but Lee Jinha shrugged it off, claiming she was smarter than them. Curious, the girl asked about the papers in front of her. Lee Jinha explained they were the scribbles of that arrogant brat. She decided to take a closer look and grade it, but as she reviewed the answers, she was left utterly speechless. She tried contacting Hajin, asking if they could talk and urging him to answer her call. However, Hajin didn't pick up. She remembered that he would be coming to the guild soon anyway, so she figured they could talk then. Frustrated, Hajin decided not to go. Instead, he reached out to Park Sung-go, informing him that he would not be participating in tomorrow's guild tour. Hajin explained that someone said the 934th cadet with a support network, so he thought it would be better to give someone else a chance. Park read the message, growing furious, while Hajin couldn't help but laugh as he imagined Yona's reaction to his decision. After a long day, Hajin felt exhausted. He wondered what Evangel had been up to make her sleep so deeply. Gently, he placed her on the bed and then picked up the sapling dust, staring at it thoughtfully. He realized he had more than he initially thought. Dividing it into 3 portions, he reserved some for Suho, Rachel, and himself. Though Suho and Rachel were important, Hajin knew he also needed to ensure his own survival. He decided to use his portion right away, reasoning that it would be pointless to apply it to his physical abilities since he had only SP and no innate potential power. So, he chose to use it on Ether. As he did, Ether absorbed the dust completely. Moments later, Naeun messaged him, thanking him for today, but stopped short with a but. 10 minutes passed, and still no further message. Annoyed, Hajin asked what she wanted to say. Feigning confusion, Naeun asked what he was talking about. Hajin told her to just go to sleep. She teases him. This was the first time they had exchanged texts. He had started as an extra with no real contact with the main characters or the story. But somehow, he had found himself deeply entangled in it. As he reflected on his current role, he realized he was more like a supporting character now. However, since nothing was set in stone, he knew he still had the power to change things. Yona was busy writing a guild tour report and drafting a guild recruitment post. Although the guild had an information team, she wanted people who could truly handle and manage information effectively. The system was already in place, they just needed to hire the right people. Instead of relying on her uncle, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Late that evening, Naeun called her. Yona answered, asking why she was calling so late. Naeun mentioned that she was attending a seminar with Kim Suho on Tuesday and invited her to join. Yona initially declined, but when Naeun mentioned that Shin Jonghak was also going, she immediately changed her mind and agreed to attend. Before ending the call, Naeun brought up something else. She asked Yona if she had seen the drone footage from the fight with the golem. Yona replied that she had seen it while writing her report. Yona then teased her, asking if she wanted to talk about the part where Kim Hajin held her in his arms. Naeun quickly denied it. Yona continued teasing, pointing out that the footage clearly showed Naeun falling into Hajin's arms. Embarrassed and flustered, Naeun got angry, threatening to make sure no one else would see the footage. Yona, amused, asked if it felt good, which only made Naeun angrier before she abruptly ended the call, completely flustered. Afterward, Yona returned to her work. Soon, she received another call, this time from Park Sung-go, informing her that Kim Hajin was withdrawing from the guild tour. Park was furious and told her everything. Yona herself felt frustrated. She had no way of predicting Hajin's actions. Meanwhile, Hajin had gained 89 SP points and was equally confused, wondering if he had somehow gained the interest of someone. Deciding to make the most of it, he opted to invest in his weapon, Ether, rather than his physical abilities, knowing that his physique would eventually fall behind. He wrote about a new talent, hoping for success. Due to his low SP points, the quality of the upgrade decreased, but thanks to his luck effect, a portion of the loss was recovered. The new talent allowed him to create weapons out of ether. Though not completely satisfied, he was grateful for the improvement. With preparations complete, Hajin was ready for what came next. The reason he rushed the enhancement was that the travel club's next destination, scheduled for the upcoming Friday, was England, the beginning of the next arc. For the past few weeks, Hajin's summer break felt like a relentless series of grueling training sessions. Despite working hard, his stats remained average. However, Ether had fully matured. Its physical strength had increased, and it gained 2 additional functions, the ability to change color and shape. He tried to create a gun, but its composition was too complex, so he settled on making a knife instead. The knife worked successfully, and even received a random enhancement. When he threw the knife at a large stone, it pierced right through. While not as powerful as relics, this ordinary-looking knife would cause others to lower their guard, just before it delivered a deadly strike. Evangel was excited, but Hajin reminded her to keep quiet while he was away for club activities. He promised to bring her some delicious food later and warned her to create only animals with her spirit, not humans. Meanwhile, in Rachel's palace, her butler reassured her that she didn't need to worry. He informed her that trustworthy agents had been recruited for her safety. He mentioned the cadet who had saved her and asked if he should approach him through the Imperial Guild. Rachel agreed, instructing him to proceed. When she had seen Hajin in action, she had felt that he was far above his current rank. She suspected that another guild might already be eyeing him for recruitment. Even though the Imperial Guild was not lacking compared to Korean guilds, with the guild's priority recruitment rights, they would be able to legally propose better offers than the competition. In England, the travel club gathered for their next adventure. Naeun complained about the heat, noticing that Hajin was wearing a jacket. He responded that he was completely comfortable, thanks to the jacket's special function. As they were sightseeing, the club leader pointed out a floating island in the sky where they would soon be heading, Clancy Islet. The islet, created by the English government using floating crystals, was a hub for all things money-related, hosting entertainment, auctions, and exhibitions of new items. It was essentially England's version of Las Vegas, a golden island. As they arrived at Clancy Islet, Naeun commented that it had been a long time since she had visited. Kim Suho asked if she had been here before. Naeun explained that she had visited with her brother when she was 11 years old, but after mentioning him, her mood darkened. Suho, sensing this, lightened the atmosphere by saying it was his first time there and asked if she could be his guide. Naeun agreed, and the mood improved. The club president informed everyone about a big event scheduled for 7 p.m. and told them they could explore and enjoy themselves before then. Naeun suggested they visit the casino, and everyone agreed. When they arrived at the casino, Hajin went to exchange some money for tokens. While doing so, he recognized someone, Jane. He asked her how long she had been working there, and she replied it had been 6 years. Jane had already infiltrated the place. The event the club president had mentioned would be a major one, with influential figures from around the world gathering to obtain a certain item. Although Hajin wanted to stay cool-headed, he couldn't help but feel nervous. This casino was the perfect place for someone like him, who relied on luck to make some money. With the event still a few hours away, he decided to try his luck on the slot machines. While wandering through the casino, he overheard a familiar voice. It was Naeun, who was repeatedly losing. He also noticed a man named Vert, a skilled con artist. Naeun, frustrated by her losing streak, was ready to call it quits. Vert offered her 25% of the money she had lost, claiming he didn't feel good about taking money from kids. Annoyed, Naeun decided to teach him a lesson, but Hajin knew better. He recalled that in a couple of hours, Naeun would likely be crying back at the hotel, having lost all the money she brought to the casino. That's what happened in the original novel. Vert and his crew, especially Vert himself, were notorious con artists. Naeun lost again. As the heiress of a wealthy family, losing money wasn't a big deal to her, but what caught Hajin's attention was Vert's bracelet. He was far more interested in that than the money. Hajin joined the table, and Naeun asked if he even had money to play. He simply told her to watch and began the game. One of the players noticed that Hajin hadn't even flipped his cards over, but he could see cards without flipping them. Annoyed, the player accused him of being reckless. Hajin told him to focus on his own game. When Hajin eventually revealed one of his cards, the player got even angrier, feeling insulted by Hajin's formal tone. However, Vert, the leader of the group, remained calm, reminding them that they were cadets from Cube and should behave. Despite his calm demeanor, Vert was likely furious inside. Meanwhile, Jane informed the chameleon troupe that there were 6 people from the evil society, 3 heroes from the association, 1 swindler, and 1 person from the light source present. She also mentioned that their leader's favorite, Kim Hajin, was among them. Jane wondered if her cover had been blown when Hajin saw her face, but Drun reassured her that her identity would only be revealed if Hajin focused his mana on his optic nerves, which wasn't something people did casually. Back at the game, Vert was losing badly, and after 12 rounds, Hajin had already made more than $60,000. Vert's current hand was strong. He had an ace of hearts, and if combined with the remaining 5 cards, he could have a full house. For Hajin to win, he would need at least 4 of a kind, which was highly unlikely. However, luck was on Hajin's side, as always. As the stakes increased, Vert, frustrated by his losses, suggested Hajin bet the ring he was wearing around his neck. He asked if it was an artifact and inquired why Hajin wore it like that. Hajin said he had his reasons. Naeun, noticing the tension, told Hajin she would give him money so he wouldn't have to bet the ring if it was precious to him. Hajin told her to sit down and assured her he wouldn't lose. Hajin agreed to bet the ring, but on the condition that Vert bet his bracelet as well. Vert, confident in his full house, agreed. He revealed his cards, and sure enough, he had a full house. Naeun was shocked, and Vert began collecting the winnings. However, Hajin calmly reminded everyone that he hadn't revealed his cards yet. When he flipped them over, he had 4 of a kind. The entire table was stunned, and Vert couldn't believe it. He started causing a scene, but Hajin simply collected his winnings and examined the bracelet's attributes. Vert still didn't know the true value of the bracelet. Mana flowed through it, and Hajin realized he could imprint other magic aspects onto it for use. Vert, unfortunately for him, wouldn't discover its true power until a year later. Afterward, Naeun approached Hajin, asking what he would have done if he had lost. Hajin casually replied that he would have jumped into the river. He then asked if she wanted her share of the money back, as 1/3 of it was technically hers. She declined, telling him he could keep it all. Suho and Yuyona were waiting for Hajin, and Yuyona was growing impatient. When Hajin finally arrived, he was sporting a new outfit. Yuyona was too stunned to speak, taken aback by his transformation. Hajin explained that he had visited an antique shop. Naeun then chimed in, recounting how Hajin had won all his matches at the casino. Just then, someone approached Naeun from behind, asking what she was doing there. Naeun recognized him immediately. He asked if Hajin was her boyfriend, which flustered her. She quickly clarified that they were just friends. Yuyona, curious, asked if he was Hunter Kim Junwoo of Light Source. He confirmed, slightly surprised that he still had some popularity. Yuyona introduced herself, and as they conversed, the captain watched them from a distance. She then asked Jane if everything was ready. At the River Thames portal, reporters were gathered to cover the arrival of VIP guests. A car pulled up, and Princess Rachel of England stepped out. The reporters bombarded her with questions about recent demonic human attacks, but she ignored them. She proceeded toward the portal, where she was greeted by the CEO of the Zealand Corporation. He thanked her for attending, and Rachel praised his efforts in defending against demonic humans. The CEO assured her that Clancy Islet was the safest place in Europe, boasting that they had gathered high-ranking heroes. As the greatest sponsor of the Imperial Guild, he promised to uphold its prestigious reputation. However, Rachel didn't seem particularly pleased. As the event commenced, everyone gathered, including Hajin, who had arrived earlier. He couldn't believe they were hosting such an extravagant event in a world swarming with demonic humans. Hajin had written about the Lotan Company, noting it as one of the most corrupt organizations. While there were no demonic humans among its executives, their deeds were just as evil. These types of people were in possession of white crystals, a valuable and dangerous resource. There would be 3 main demonic humans appearing today: Nade, the crystal carrier, Silicen, the combatant, and Hakpyo, the team leader. With his current abilities, Hajin knew he couldn't take them on, so he decided to observe for now. Suddenly, the captain approached Hajin, feigning surprise upon seeing him. Hajin asked what she was doing there, and she explained that she was working as a guard hero. Jane teased her over the earpiece, congratulating her on meeting her crush again. Annoyed, the captain snapped back, asking what nonsense Jane was talking about, which made Hajin scared. She quickly clarified that her colleague was saying something strange through the earpiece. Just then, Kim Suho arrived and asked Hajin who the woman was. Hajin explained that she was an upper intermediate hero working as a guard at the event. He introduced Suho and Yuyona to her. Kim Junwoo also joined them and inquired how she knew Hajin. He asked her which group she belonged to, but before she could answer, the lights dimmed, signaling the start of the event. The captain avoided the question, excusing herself as she hurried off to her duties. Junwoo was left confused, while Hajin felt a surge of anxiety, wondering if Junwoo had noticed something suspicious. From the VIP balcony, Rachel noticed the group and spotted Hajin. Her eyes lingered on him, noticing that he was wearing the relic she had given him, which made her feel a sense of happiness. The CEO of Zealand Corporation took the stage, welcoming everyone and introducing himself. He posed a question to the audience: "What is the source of all creation?" Then he answered, "Mana." He explained that mana naturally gathers and can become a treasure of great power. Among these treasures, white crystals were particularly rare and precious. So far, 480 crystals had been discovered, but their full potential remained unknown. However, the Lotan Corporation had found a way to harness the power of these white crystals. Rachel, observing from the balcony, noticed an increase in the number of black puppets scattered around the room, but something felt off to her. Meanwhile, Hajin quietly got up and began walking out of the hall. Rachel, suspicious of his actions, wondered where he was going in the middle of such an important event. He always seemed to be at the scene of incidents, and there was something extraordinary about his presence. There were too many suspicious factors surrounding him for her to ignore. Rachel ordered her guards to leave her and search for any suspicious characters in the hall. Once her guards left, Rachel used her shadow expansion ability, allowing her to become invisible. She then decided to follow Hajin, convinced that something was about to happen in the hall. The leader of the evil society was pleased that Zealand had brought the real item. The only way in and out of Clancy Islet was through a portal, which was being strictly monitored. Since the island was made from mana, demonic humans couldn't create artificial portals. However, they had planned to use an air transportation device instead. Meanwhile, Hajin was moving to the upper floors, with Rachel following him from a distance. He reached the rooftop door, which was locked. Rachel wondered why he was heading there since the rooftop was a restricted area. Hajin seemed to be deep in thought and then pulled out a hammer, leaving Rachel speechless. He was clearly planning to break through the door. Weapons were prohibited on Clancy Islet, but some tools were allowed. Rachel couldn't believe he was seriously considering breaking through a manasteel alloy door with a worn-out hammer. But Hajin smashed the hammer against the door, destroying it with ease. Rachel was stunned. She hadn't expected him to break through so easily. Just then, noises echoed from the hall below. Chaos had erupted, and people were running in panic as demonic humans began attacking. The demonic human, Nade, grabbed Zealand by the face while holding a white crystal in his other hand. Suddenly, a hero jumped at Nade from behind, but Nade dodged the attack with ease. He then created multiple clones of himself. However, the hero remained calm, as he was of advanced rank. Instead of fighting, Nade's clones scattered throughout the area. Naeon and Suho were focused on evacuating civilians when Junwoo rushed over to check on Naeon, handing a sword to Suho. Meanwhile, Hajin on the rooftop recalled the original story. Nade would split into 8 bodies and escape. In the east, a hero was already chasing one of the clones, but that Nade didn't have the crystal. In the north, where the captain was located, the Nade in the original story possessed the crystal. The captain was soon ambushed by demonic humans, but she used her ability, summoning a black ball of mana that started absorbing their bodies. Nade was terrified, and she summoned a massive spike, striking him down. Even though Hajin had created her character, he was still intimidated by her powers. However, the Nade she killed turned out to be just a clone. Shocked, Hajin quickly opened his laptop, but he didn't receive any story change alerts. This was a change caused by the current situation's variables, and Hajin was panicking, unsure of what to do. He thought of an idea but wasn't sure if it would work. He knew that the mana of the stigma could be used according to his will. He just needed to focus it on his retina to activate his far sight. He succeeded, scanning the area and seeing Nade getting into a car with the crystal. Immediately, Hajin felt the backlash from using his power, but he quickly got up, jumped from the rooftop, and spotted a bike nearby. Meanwhile, Naeon and Suho were busy rescuing civilians. Hajin called out to Naeon, and when she turned, he tossed a mana sword to her. She asked what it was, and Hajin explained, it's a sword to fight against demonic humans. It was a special weapon, a mana sword that he got from Sidious. Its stats increase depending on the user's mana capacity. With her power, she can wield even greater strength than demonic humans. He then told her he had some business to take care of and urged her to stay safe. Hajin chased after the demonic human and pinpointed his location in the southeast. Nade asked the driver when they would arrive, and the driver responded that they were almost there. Suddenly, Hajin crashed into the car, flipping it over. Nade kicked open the door, and at that moment, an aircraft arrived. Hajin quickly opened his laptop and used his SP points to send the aircraft back to its hangar. Despite Nade's furious shouting, the aircraft didn't stop and left him behind. Now that the interference was gone, Hajin prepared to fight. But suddenly, he sensed a powerful aura charging toward him. In a flash, someone appeared with lightning speed, grabbing Nade by the head. Rachel was with him. This was a bad situation. Jungyeon appeared out of nowhere, but when he noticed Rachel, he was surprised. Wondering what she was doing here, he quickly pulled out ether and stole the case containing the white crystal. Jungyeon calmly told Hajin to put the case down, but Hajin, holding a gun aimed at the white crystal, warned him, "Put her down, or he won't get what you want." Jungyeon was intrigued by Hajin's bravery, but Hajin added, "He's serious. If he doesn't put her down, he'll never get this crystal." Smirking, Jungyeon praised Hajin's courage and put Rachel down. Hajin handed over the case, knowing that he couldn't use the white crystal anyway, and his original plan was to give it to the UK imperial family. But now that Jungyeon was involved, his only option was to negotiate with Rachel. As Hajin was deep in thought, Jungyeon suddenly lunged at him, attacking. Hajin had let his guard down. Jungyeon's punch caused a massive blast, and the impact was overwhelming. In the next scene, Jungyeon halted his attack just before hitting Hajin. He was impressed, thinking, he's quite bold for not even blinking, with the attitude of a fighter who observes his opponent until the very last moment. Jungyeon spared Hajin, finding him quite impressive. Meanwhile, Hajin was terrified, collapsing onto the ground. He had really come close to death. Once he regained his senses, he realized Jungyeon's fist had been right in front of his face. He hadn't had time to react. If he had made any foolish moves, his head would have been blown off. Rachel woke up and asked, "What happened to that enemy?" Hajin replied he left. He explained that demonic human had taken the crystal. Curious, he asked Rachel, was she tracking the crystal too? Rachel shook her head and said she was tracking him. She then showed him a bullet, asking if it belonged to him. She told him she had found it during the final exam. Hajin remembered the time he was sniping demonic humans and confirmed it looks like his. He wanted a closer look at the bullet, but Rachel refused to hand it over. Rachel explained that she had been following him in case a similar situation happened, but admitted she wasn't much help. The enemy was just too strong. Then she asked, why did he help her back then? During the midterm and final exams as well? She can't help but feel like he's been watching her closely. Hajin couldn't tell her the truth, so he quickly came up with an excuse, saying he's a fan of hers. And he even joined her fan club. It was a fake excuse, but he couldn't tell her that she was a main character in a novel, constantly exposed to great danger. If she were to die or get hurt, it would mess up the storyline. Rachel looked at him skeptically and asked if he's trying to say that he likes her. Meanwhile, chaos calmed, and ambulances and police were called to the scene. Yona sat alone, exhausted. Naeun approached her, asking if she had seen what happened. Yona nodded and said she saw so many things. The one who left the greatest impression amidst the chaos was Kim Junwoo, the hunter from Light Source. His overwhelming strength was incredible, destroying everything barehanded. Then there was Kim Suho, the sword saint, cutting through all the incoming attacks like paper. And Naeun, who had a mana sword and cut down all the monsters. Naeun told her she's talking about Kim Hajin. He rode off on a bike. Yona remembered and was impressed that he knows how to ride a bike. Naeun replied, it was so cool. And curious where he even got that bike. Just then, Kim Suho came running up, asking if they had seen Rachel. Naeun suddenly realized she hadn't seen her since the attack began. Yona wondered aloud if their true intention was to kidnap Rachel. She was clearly frustrated. As they discussed it, they saw Rachel riding up on a bike. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, glad she was safe. Naeun noticed a bike, and it was the bike Kim Hajin rode off on. Yona glanced at the bike and then at Rachel, wondering if Kim Hajin took down all the demonic humans by himself and rescued her. But she quickly dismissed the idea, saying no way, not even Kim Hajin could pull off something that ridiculous.